Snow sifted down in slow, ghostly sheets, muting the world until even the pine tops seemed carved from moonlight. Clara Whitlow hugged her mother's lace wedding gown to her chest, breath rising in frantic clouds. The trading post's lantern swung in the wind ahead, its yellow glow the only spark in a valley of silence. Hunger gnawed harder than the cold. For 3 days she'd eaten nothing but melted snow and the heel of stale bread. Inside, the air smelled of tallow and wet fur. Old Hiram Dunn barely looked up from the ledger when she entered, her boots leaving a trail of crushed frost. "You're late to the storm," he said, voice rough as a file. "What's your trade?" Clara laid the folded gown on the counter. White lace, now dulled to gray, caught the lamplight like frost. Her throat tightened. "Bread, just one loaf." Hiram's bushy brows rose. "That dress could fetch double." "You sure?" Her fingers lingered on the fabric a heartbeat too long. "I'm sure." The old man wrapped a round loaf in brown paper, setting it beside the gown as if performing a funeral rite. "You'll want to hurry." The passel closed by nightfall. She slipped the bread into her satchel and pushed the door open to a blast of icy wind. The mountains loomed like silent judges. She did not look back. A raven croaked from the tree line. Clara stiffened, the cry slicing through the hush like a warning. From the corner of her eye she caught movement. A dark figure at the edge of the pines, broad-shouldered, face hidden beneath a fur-lined hood. For a breath he seemed carved from the very snow. Then, as she turned, he vanished into the swirling white. Her pulse quickened. No one ventured these passes after dusk. She gripped the satchel tighter and quickened her pace, the crunch of her boots swallowed by the storm. Behind her, the trading post door creaked, though no wind blew. Hiram's low curse carried faintly. Not again. Clara spun. Through the blur of falling snow, the lantern swung wildly, then stilled. The counter inside stood empty. Her mother's gown was gone. The storm howled louder, as if it too demanded an answer. And somewhere in the dark timberline, a single set of unseen boots followed her home. Dawn bled pale across Bitter Creek, a thin wash of silver over the black timberline. Clara woke to the hiss of wind under the cabin door and the sharp crack of ice shifting on the river. Her satchel lay by the hearth, bread still wrapped, but the emptiness where her mother's gown should have been burned like a brand in her chest. A single set of boot prints cut through the fresh snow outside. They led away from the door and vanished into the dark woods beyond the frozen creek. She tightened her shawl and stepped out. The cold bit her cheeks until they stung, the air smelling of pine pitch and iron. Each crunch of her boots echoed like a gunshot. Halfway across the creek she heard it, a low whistle, almost a bird call, too steady to be chance. "Who's there?" Her voice carried thin and brittle. A figure emerged between the pines, broad-shouldered fur hood drawn back to reveal a scar streaking across his left cheek. His eyes, glacier blue, studied her without hurry. "You dropped something precious," he said, voice deep as the frozen earth. Clara gripped her shawl tighter. "You stole it." "I kept it from worse hands." He slid the bundle from beneath his coat, her mother's gown, dry and clean. Not many would leave a dress like this on Hiram's counter. Men in town would sell it by nightfall. She hesitated. "Why do you care?" He gave a ghost of a smile. "Call it an old debt to someone I once failed." Before she could answer, a sharp crack split the air. Rifle fire, close. Snow showered from a pine trunk inches from her shoulder. Clara dropped to her knees. "Down!" The man lunged, pulling her behind a boulder. Another shot rang out, ricocheting off the frozen creek. Through the trees a lone rider appeared, face hidden beneath a wide-brim hat. The horse's breath steamed in the icy air, the rider holding his rifle steady. The stranger beside her whispered, "That's Kettner's mark. Sheriff's not fond of witnesses." "Why would the sheriff—" Clara began, but the man cut her off. "No time." He thrust the gown into her arms. "Name's Elias Rourke, and if you want to live, follow me." The rider raised his rifle again. The next bullet hissed past, biting a splinter from the boulder. Elias gripped her hand. "Run." Behind them, the sheriff's second shot cracked like thunder, and the frozen creek roared with sudden, splitting ice. The gulch was a throat of stone, choked with night and the hiss of the wind. Clara's breath smoked in the moonlight as she crouched beside Elias, boots sinking into powdery snow. Behind them, the frozen creek cracked and boomed like distant cannon fire. Somewhere up the slope, the sheriff's horse stamped and snorted, the sound carrying like a warning through the pines. Elias scanned the ridge. He'll circle north. We move now or he cuts us off. Clara's heart hammered. Why is the sheriff hunting us? Elias didn't answer. He pulled a worn revolver from his coat, the steel glinting pale blue. You ever trust a man wearing a badge around here? They slipped deeper into the gulch, the walls narrowing until even moonlight struggled to reach them. The air smelled of cold iron and pine sap. A distant owl hooted, too precise, too timed. Elias froze. That ain't no owl. A shadow detached from the rocks ahead, the barrel of a rifle catching a shard of moonlight. Drop the gun. Rourke! A woman's voice called, sharp as a whip crack. Clara blinked. A riderless bay mare stood behind the figure. The woman's face emerged from the dark, long black coat, a scar along her jaw. Lydia Kettner, Elias muttered. Sheriff's kin. Lydia stepped closer, rifle steady. You're making a mess, cousin. Clara's breath caught. Cousin? Elias lowered his revolver slightly but did not drop it. You still running errands for that snake? He says you've been selling miners' claims to outlaws. Her eyes flicked to Clara. And that you'll kill to keep the girl quiet. Clara's chest tightened. That's a lie. Lydia's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. Maybe, but the sheriff has a bounty big enough to make men believe it. Elias snarled. He's covering his own thefts. Another crack split the night, a shot from the ridge. Sparks leapt from the stone near Lydia's feet. She swore and ducked. Elias grabbed Clara's arm. That's his signal. He wants us all dead, and the story buried. Snow cascaded from the cliff face as another bullet whined past. Lydia swung her rifle toward the ridge. We're out of time, Rourke. You want the truth? Then trust me now, or we all freeze under his bullets. Elias met Clara's gaze, jaw tight. Your call, girl. Above them, the sheriff's laughter rolled down the gulch, low, cold, and far too close. Moonlight washed the gulch in cold silver, turning every jagged rock into the edge of a blade. Clara crouched beside Elias and Lydia, lungs tight with the taste of gunpowder and pine smoke. Above them, the sheriff's silhouette moved along the ridge, his shadow long and black against the white crust of snow. The wind carried the faint jingle of spurs, a slow, taunting rhythm. Lydia pressed her back to the stone and whispered, He's hurting us. Wants us penned where the shot's clean. Elias slid a cartridge into his revolver with a metallic click. He always did like tidy endings. Clara swallowed the chill crawling down her spine. Why you, why me? Elias's jaw worked. Your father staked the richest silver claim in these hills. Sheriff Kettner killed him for it, then buried the deed. He thinks you have it. The word struck like a hammer. Clara's breath fogged, sharp and fast. I never saw any deed. He thinks you did, Lydia said. That's enough. A sudden crack. Snow sprayed from the rock above. Clara ducked instinctively as a second bullet sang past. Lydia hissed, We can't hold here. Elias's eyes glinted. There's an old smelter at the canyon mouth. Stone walls. If we reach it, we turn the hunt. They sprinted through the narrow defile, boots skidding on ice. The night roared with the sheriff's rifle, each shot a whip of fire against the dark. A gust funneled through the gulch, carrying the bitter scent of burnt pine. Halfway down the slope, a rusted trestle bridge loomed. Beneath it, the frozen creek groaned. Elias slowed. Bridge won't hold three at once. Lydia slung her rifle over her shoulder. I'll cover. You two cross first. No, Clara said, voice shaking. You're his kin. He'll shoot you first. Lydia's smile was grim. All the more reason I stay. Elias grabbed Clara's wrist. Go. Clara set foot on the bridge. Wood moaned under her weight. A shot cracked. A splinter bit her cheek. She stumbled forward, heart hammering. Behind her, Lydia fired back, the muzzle flashed bright as lightning. Then a sound tore through the night, a low rolling rumble. The creek ice beneath the trestle shifted, cracking like cannon fire. Run, Elias bellowed. The sheriff's laughter rose from the dark, and the bridge shuddered as the first support beam gave way. The night split with the scream of breaking timber. Clara hurled herself forward as the trestle shivered beneath her boots. Below, the frozen creek roared, ice plates grinding like the jaws of some buried beast. Behind her, Elias caught her elbow, dragging her clear as the bridge's middle span collapsed in a thunder of splinters. Lydia leapt last. Her coat snapped like a black flag as she landed, rolling hard on the snow. The bridge behind them sagged and groaned, half swallowed by the churning ice. From the far ridge, the sheriff's voice cut through the wind. "Nowhere left to run, Rourke." His laughter carried like a curse. Elias turned, revolver steady. "Stay behind me," he murmured to Clara. The sheriff emerged from the dark, rifle in hand, spurs chiming with each slow step. Moonlight caught the glint of his badge, a false promise of law. "You stole my claim," Elias called, voice low. "And you think killing her will bury the deed forever?" Kettner's grin was a white slash. "Your father was a drunk and a cheat. That land belongs to men who can use it." Clara stepped forward despite the tremor in her knees. "My father died for that silver." "And you murdered him." The sheriff raised his rifle. "Girl, you've got his tongue." "I'll silence it too." A shot cracked, not the sheriff's. Lydia's rifle barked from the shadows. The sheriff's hat spun off his head. He lunged sideways and fired wild. A bullet struck the stone wall, showering sparks. Elias rushed, tackling him. They crashed into the snow, wrestling for the rifle. Clara's breath came ragged. The creek below thundered, the ice splitting wider. Kettner wrenched free, drawing a hidden pistol. He leveled it at Elias. "No." Clara snatched the fallen rifle, hands shaking. She fired. The sheriff staggered, the pistol clattering to the snow. He fell to his knees, a dark bloom spreading across his coat. Silence settled, broken only by the groan of shifting ice. Kettner's eyes found Clara's. He smiled, a faint, twisted thing, then toppled forward. Elias rose, chest heaving. Lydia lowered her rifle. "It's over," she said, but her voice held no triumph. Clara stared at the sheriff's body, the moon painting it silver. Somewhere beneath the ice, the creek still roared, carrying secrets downstream. Elias touched her shoulder. "The claim is yours now, but silver draws more wolves than one sheriff." A distant howl drifted over the canyon, long, low, and much too close.